Okay, welcome back. So, the title of today's video is Finding a Way to Get Along. And I want to start by telling a story from a meditation retreat I did about 4 years ago in Myanmar with the Burmese meditation master Lin Sayadaw. And in one of his Dhamma talks, he was trying to provide us as meditation practitioners, spiritual practitioners, he was trying to provide us with some kind of way to check with ourselves, to kind of see where we're at with our practice, kind of like to see if it's working. So he said, the way to see if your practice is working, or the way to know that your practice is working, is to ask yourself, are you able to get along? And then he went further and said, if your practice is really working, you'll be able to get along with everything. You'll be able to get along with other people. You'll be able to get along with the weather. You'll be able to get along with the food. So I thought this was a very lovely teaching. And, although we might not always use that same way of talking about food or weather, getting along with the weather, getting along with the food, it sounds a little bit funny in English. His English is pretty good, but is one of those things as a Burmese monk. That was his way of expressing this teaching, and it's an interesting thing to reflect on, right? There's an invitation here for all of us to reflect on this teaching. To what extent are we able to get along with each other and with all kinds of different situations in life, whether it's traffic or the weather is too hot or too cold, or stressful situations at work, or a difficult situation in the world where there's a lot of fear, there's uncertainty, there's doubt, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of violence. And so we are reminded to see our efforts, our practice, as finding a way to get along with everything, finding a way to be okay no matter what. And so in my last video, I talked about the Buddha's concept of enlightenment as simply being the absence of greed, hatred, and delusion. And then I went on to say another way of looking at it is the Buddha's concept of enlightenment is seeing the way things are and not needing them to be different. So if our eyes are open, right now we're seeing a lot of things that we don't like. But this invitation tells us to also pay attention to that. So there's a lot of things happening out there we don't like. And we also notice that, there's also this inner reaction to that of disliking. We can become curious about that, like, why don't I like these things? Why don't I like certain ideas? Why don't I like violence even? And then we understand that, okay, there's something in me, there's some part of me, maybe it's my own views, my own ethical position, my own political position, based on my education, based on my family, based on my culture, based on society, what I learned from my teacher, all these things, my personality, all of these things kind of coming together to influence what I think is right and wrong, what I think is good and bad, what I think is okay and not okay, what I like and what I don't like. So if we're aware that the external world out there is being filtered in a way through my through our own perceptions and preferences, and through our own understanding, through our own biases, then we can become aware of that whole kind of interaction. It's a whole kind of conversation. And that's really important to see, because it's not to say that, some things, that there is no right or wrong, that there is no good or bad, it's more to just kind of highlight this process that's taking place, because the process there is determining how we feel. So the promise is that no matter what is happening, we can be okay. And that doesn't mean that we just allow kind of, injustices to happen and we never take action. It means that before we kind of step forward, we want to have a clear mind. We want to be calm. So you can reflect on this, that when you're feeling strong emotions like fear or anger, how does that affect your ability to think clearly and make skillful choices? And that's, we can see that happening a lot right now. There's a lot of like reactivity, automated reactivity happening. There's a lot of people kind of fighting back and forth, holding on to their side, dismissing the other side, and just like straight rejection. I don't want to listen anymore. Everything that you say is wrong or bad, or it represents evil, or whatever it is. So we can use the practice, even just, it doesn't have to be like, sitting for an hour with your eyes closed. It can be just in the moment when we notice that these internal reactions are getting fired up. And the way to do that is largely just to feel your body, just to notice that they will have some kind of physical manifestation in the body. A lot of times it's in the chest, or in the throat, or in the face, or in the stomach, or in multiple locations. There might be like a sense of tightness, or heat, or pressure. There oftentimes there's like a contraction, and what's happening is oftentimes we don't end up we're not actually reacting to whatever is happening out there, but it's that our internal the internal weather is so uncomfortable, and and if we're not aware of it, we just kind of react to that. So it's like whether it's like something that somebody says that we don't like, or a political party that we don't like, or a political candidate that we don't like, or a tweet, or a Facebook post, or a YouTube video. We can see this whole process. It's like, if we don't like that thing, there's a decent chance that when we perceive that thing, it will trigger that internal reaction and the kind of storm, the internal storm. of the tightness, the contraction, the heat, the pressure. And then when we're feeling that way, it really is difficult to respond wisely. It's difficult to respond carefully. And so the more we become aware of our internal reactions, which are largely based on our preferences, the more we can recognize how we feel in having perceived or been exposed to certain things. Like you hear about something, or you see something, or even, the weather's too hot, or that you're stuck in traffic, or whatever it is, and it's like, if you can be aware of, oh yeah, here's that reaction, here's that internal storm. Now we have a choice. Do you want to go along with that? Do you want that to be what guides you? Do you want to make any decisions based on that? Do you want to come forward and say something? Or if it's on the computer, do you want to, respond to a comment when you're feeling that way? And then when you do, because it happens, sometimes it happens so fast that it's like we didn't even really notice. But then, we can look at when we react in that way, how do we feel about our actions? Are we always proud of what we do and say when we are being reactive? I know I'm not, and so with all the different ideas out there about what enlightenment means, or what it means to be a spiritual person, it's kind of it's confusing, right? And there's a lot of conflicting ideas. So to come back to Bilin Sayadaw's kind of definition, it's like, if your meditation practice is really working, you'll be able to get along with everything. You'll be able to get along with everyone, even someone that you are strongly opposed to, even someone that maybe you don't respect, someone that that you see as part of the problem. And when we can get along with people, even though ... fill in the blank, whatever it is, even though they've done something to hurt us, even though we don't like what they represent, even though we don't like what they did or said, fair enough, but there's still a way to get along with this person. There's still a way to communicate with each other, and to recognize that all human beings have some kind of right, have some kind of value. There is a shared fundamental value to all human beings. And when we can at least come together at that basic level of understanding, then there can be a kind of open dialogue. We can at least try to understand one another. And if we don't agree with someone, or we think someone is, really a bad person, maybe becoming curious about what happened to them, what's their story, how did they get to that place, and what factors are at play here, like mental illness, depression, or pent-up anger over many years. They weren't loved enough or cared for as a child. They were abused. They've just ran out of hope, and now there's like this desperation. Who knows? If we just label them and dismiss them and refuse to acknowledge any kind of value of their life, then we fail to understand each other, and then we're just fighting back and forth. Doesn't go anywhere. What's the benefit of that? So I think there's the invitation here is to, another way I've heard it described is to soften the heart. So oftentimes these physical emotions manifest these emotions manifest in the chest, the physical manifestation. So, and there's like a contraction, there's a hardening of the heart. So this is an invitation to soften the heart. And when we soften the heart, we're open, and we're willing to listen. We're willing to consider other points of view, other sides, and try to understand the causality. If we think someone has really gone the wrong way, it's like, maybe there's a reason for that. Can we invite a sense of compassion to see that there is some reason that people are the way they are, and it's complicated, right? One way to verify that is, to look at yourself and then ask yourself, why are you the way that you are? Why do you have the views that you have? Why do you have the opinions that you have? Why do you have the beliefs and convictions and the perspectives? And, if you reflect on that, maybe you find, it's complicated. Another good question. Are all those things constant or changing? Have you always been that way? Or was there a time when you believed differently? Was there a time when your convictions were different? So we can also see like everyone is in this process of life, and that hopefully we're learning and evolving and shedding layers, to make room for new insights and new information to come in and have some kind of hopefully positive impact on us. And we can also see that some people have been pushed really far into a certain way of thinking or acting that we might disagree with, but there's a lot of things that happened, and maybe they weren't always that way. We haven't always been the way that we are now, so it wouldn't be right to assume that someone else has always been the way they are right now. Maybe even more important, though, another teaching from the great Indian sage Ramana Maharshi. When asked by one of his students, how should we treat others? His response was, there are no others. So maybe just take a moment to reflect on that. What do you think he might have meant? There are no others. So I believe this is the same. This is one way. Finding a way to get along. Well, if we stop seeing people as other than us, different from us, some kind of, because we can fit them we can put a different label on them, we can put them in a different category, we can draw a line, then we're over here, they're over there, And there's nothing, in no way are we connected. There's in no way are we the same. That's something, that's a view worth questioning, because in many ways we are the same. And certainly as a, without making any great claims that we are all one, because I don't really know if that's true. Certainly we're all connected in different ways. And there's an interdependency. Just think about how many people and how many technologies and how much time it took for us to get to this point where, I can record a video on my phone and post it online and you can watch it from your home, and it's incredible. That's not because of me or you. There's a lot of other people that have influenced us. People that made our clothes, people that grew our food most of the time, all the technology that we use for transportation, everything we've learned it from other, most of the things we've learned from other people, from our teachers, from our parents, So we tend to like solidify ourself as something so kind of rigid and constant, and then we kind of find other people who we agree with, and then we create these groups, and then it's very easy to have like the us versus them mentality. But it's not so simple to categorize, to label, to clearly define different people, because if we're always changing, then technically in every moment we're different. Technically our bodies are constantly getting older, so the body's always changing. And there's so much movement within the body, and there's so much movement in the mind. So there's really, you can't take two snapshots of one person. In every moment, one person has a slightly different body and a slightly different mind, and there's different sensations happening, different feelings. So what is it that we think makes someone who they are? And how does that oftentimes cause us to put them in some kind of category as the other, and then how does that oftentimes get in the way of our ability to get along with others? That's a good thing to become curious about. And then if we practice seeing other people as, let's say, not separate, not completely separate from us. They have a body similar to ours, made up of the same types of, material, bones and skin. They have a heart, they have a brain, they have a name, they have a personality, they have a gender and a nationality, and they have views, and some of those things were just kind of given to them at birth. Some of those things they've helped to create. But there's a lot of factors in there, and certainly we're all changing. And more importantly, we're all in this together. Whether we are one or not, I don't know. It depends on what you mean, maybe. But we're all in this together. We're sharing this space. So even if you think some of the things I said are nonsense, it's like, wouldn't it be better if we figured out how to get along? It's like if you have a job that you're stuck in, or that is decent enough, you know that like you got to figure out how to get along with coworkers that you don't really like, because you're working together, you're sharing a space. So let's just apply that there's some wisdom there, you know? Let's apply that wisdom to the whole world. Let's try to get along with everyone, at least enough that we can communicate, that we can share a space together. We can be we can be willing to honor something good about each other. Say, oh, I might not approve of your views, but I'm sure there's something about you that I can come to appreciate. Like, oh, I can recognize you're a good father or mother to your children. Or I can recognize that you you know, even though I don't like what you say, I see that you tell the truth. So these are all good things to pay attention to, and you know, if not for them, you know, do it for yourself, so you can find more peace in your heart, and you can become more connected to yourself, more aware of how preferences and opinions and all these things kind of affect the way we feel and affect the way we act. Okay, thank you so much. See you again next time.